They murdered a little girl. Those alien bastards on the Galactic Council killed her in cold blood just to send a message. 8-year-old Mira Kensington, daughter of the renowned xenodiplomat Dr. Eliza Kensington, was brutally slain on the Ithorian homeworld by Council operatives. Mira's death ignited a firestorm of grief and rage across Earth. The United Earth government convened an emergency session as news of the atrocity spread. Dr. Kensington had been attempting to establish peaceful relations with the Ithorians when the Council struck, murdering Mira as a warning to all humanity: submit or be destroyed. Cries for vengeance echoed from every corner of Earth, but openly declaring war on the Council would be suicide. The oppressive oligarchy of the corporate-run worlds wielded a military machine that dwarfed humanity's fledgling space capabilities. So instead, a covert operation was born in the highest echelons of power. General Alexei Volkov, grizzled commander of Earth's elite special operations forces, proposed a daring plan: dispatch a team of his deadliest soldiers to infiltrate Ithorian space and exact retribution for Mira's murder. But ordinary troops wouldn't be enough for this mission. The general urged the activation of Project Olympus, a top-secret program that had forged a handful of super soldiers with capabilities far beyond normal human limits. United Earth President Xavier Nguyen grappled with the enormity of the decision before him. If the Council's actions went unanswered, it would open the door to further atrocities against humans across the stars. But if the super soldiers were discovered, it could spark an interstellar war that would leave Earth a smoldering husk. Torn between dread and the thirst for justice, President Nguyen greenlit the mission, codenamed Operation Retribution. The super soldier team would be led by Captain Justin Wright, a legendary Black Ops veteran driven by ironclad loyalty and relentless determination. The truth about Project Olympus and what had been done to him and his fellow super soldiers left Wright questioning his once unshakable beliefs. But the opportunity to strike back against the alien forces that viewed humanity as inferior was too much to resist. Aboard a stolen alien freighter, Wright and his team made their stealthy approach to the Ithorian homeworld. The planet was mired in the throes of forced terraforming as the Council ruthlessly strip-mined the native ecosystem, heedless of the suffering inflicted on the indigenous people. The super soldiers reviewed the scant intelligence on their target, a sprawling alien megalopolis established as the base of operations for the terraforming. Their mission was as simple as it was daunting: locate the Council members responsible for Mira's murder and terminate them with extreme prejudice while evading the Council's advanced security forces and safeguarding the secrecy of their identities and origins. The fate of Earth and all humanity hung in the balance as Wright and his team prepared to plunge into the Serpent's Den, where they would send an unmistakable message to the Galactic Council written in blood. Humanity would not be cowed, no matter the odds. The stolen freighter shuddered as it pierced the roiling storm clouds that shrouded the Ithorian homeworld. Captain Justin Wright gripped the controls, his enhanced reflexes guiding the vessel through the turbulent atmosphere. Behind him, his squad double-checked their gear, the soft clicks of weapons and armor filling the cramped cockpit. 2 minutes to landing, Wright called over his shoulder. Hawkins, Volkov, Sato, Kadiri, sound off. A chorus of affirmatives answered him, each voice edged with the steely grit that had forged them into humanity's most lethal warriors. Wright nodded, his teeth clenched as the freighter broke through the clouds and the alien megalopolis came into view. It was a nightmarish sight, a twisted landscape of half-constructed towers and sprawling industrial complexes that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Flashes of terraforming equipment split the sky, carving deep gashes into the planet's surface. Wright's enhanced vision picked out the distant figures of Council enforcers, their sleek armor glinting in the harsh light. There, Sato said, pointing to a cluster of ramshackle structures on the outskirts of the city. That's our landing zone. Scans show minimal security presence. Wright brought the freighter down in a controlled descent, the stolen Council transponder codes masking their approach. As the vessel settled onto the cracked concrete with a hiss of hydraulics, the squad moved into action, sealing their helmets and checking the charges on their pulse rifles. The hatch opened and they stepped out into the chaos of the alien slums. The stench of decay and desperation assaulted their enhanced senses. A cloying mix of smoke, filth, and the acrid tang of terraforming chemicals. Hawkins took point, his massive frame dwarfed by the heavy repeater cradled in his arms. They moved through the winding alleys, past huddled groups of Ithorians who watched them with hollow, haunted eyes. The signs of the Council's brutality were everywhere. Demolished homes, piles of rubble, and the occasional splash of dark blood on the walls. Volkov's lips tightened as they passed a line of bedraggled Ithorians shuffling towards a towering factory complex. Armed enforcers watching their every move. "This is worse than we thought," she murmured over the squad's comms. "The Council's not just terraforming, they're enslaving the entire population." Wright nodded grimly, his eyes scanning the rooftops for threats. "All the more reason to put an end to it. Sato, any luck tapping into their network?" The tech specialist tapped a series of commands into his wrist-mounted display, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm in," he said after a moment. "Downloading intel packages now. Looks like our target, Director Zavroth, is scheduled to attend some kind of gala at the regional HQ in 2 days." "A gala?" Kadiri asked, his voice tight with anger. "They're celebrating while they work these people to death?" "It's a cover," Sato replied. "The data shows it's actually a meeting of high-level council officials. They're planning the next phase of their galactic domination." Wright's eyes narrowed. "Then that's our window. We infiltrate the gala, terminate Zavroth and the other leaders, and send a message to the whole damn council that humanity won't be their plaything." Suddenly, the sound of distant explosions echoed through the slums. The squad whirled, weapons raised as a plume of smoke rose from the direction of the council headquarters. Wright's enhanced hearing picked out the chatter of gunfire and the screams of the dying. "What the hell is that?" Hawkins growled. "An attack on the HQ," Sato replied, his eyes flickering over the data scrolling across his display. "Looks like a group of Ithorian rebels trying to strike back at the council." Wright watched as a squadron of enforcer drones zipped towards the chaos, their sleek forms glinting in the half-light. "And getting slaughtered for their trouble," he said grimly. "Volkov, Kadiri, go check for survivors. The rest of you, with me. We need to recon that building." The squad split up, moving through the twisting alleys with the lethal grace of predators. As they approached the council headquarters, the scale of the carnage became apparent. Dozens of rebel bodies littered the ground, their crude weapons no match for the council's advanced tech. Volkov picked her way through the corpses, her enhanced senses straining for any sign of life. A faint moan caught her attention, and she hurried over to a collapsed section of wall. There, pinned beneath a slab of concrete, lay a young female Ithorian. Her eyes were wide with pain and fear, but there was a fierce defiance in them that struck a chord deep within Volkov. "Hold on," the corporal murmured, her enhanced strength making short work of the rubble. "We're going to get you out of here." The Ithorian coughed, dark blood bubbling from her lips. "Why?" she rasped. "Why would you help me?" "Because," Volkov said as she cradled the wounded alien in her arms, "we're here to make sure what happened to your people never happens again." The rest of the squad regrouped, their faces grim as they surveyed the carnage. Wright knelt beside Volkov, his eyes locked on the Ithorian female. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Kira," the alien replied, her voice barely more than a whisper. I know a way into the council building. Secret tunnels. Let me show you." Wright hesitated, torn between his distrust of aliens and the knowledge that they needed every advantage they could get. He looked to Volkov, saw the purpose burning in her eyes, and made his decision. "All right, Kira," he said, "you got yourself a deal, but if you betray us—" Kyra shook her head fiercely. "Never. The council must pay for what they've done. I'll do whatever it takes to see that happen." As the squad descended into the dank, twisting tunnels that snaked beneath the city, Wright couldn't shake the feeling that they were plunging headlong into the unknown. But he pushed the doubts aside, focusing on the mission, on the chance to strike a blow against the council that would be felt across the galaxy. They emerged into a hidden research lab, a nightmarish place filled with tanks of mutilated Ithorians, the subjects of the council's cruel experiments. Rage burned through the super soldiers at the sight, tempered only by the knowledge that to reveal themselves now would jeopardize everything. "Kadiri," Wright said softly, "set the charges. When we've dealt with Zavroth, we'll blow this place straight to hell." The sniper nodded, his eyes hard as he moved to plant the explosives. The rest of the squad split up, Hawkins and Volkov working to infiltrate their gear into the building, while Wright and Sato hacked the council's defenses. As the sun began to set and the gala guests started to arrive, the super soldiers moved into position. The trap was set, the players all in place. All that remained was to spring it and watch the council burn. Wright stood in the shadows of the grand hall, his pulse rifle hidden beneath the stolen robes of a council delegate. Around him, the alien elite chattered and laughed, oblivious to the doom that stalked their midst. He caught Volkov's eye from across the room, saw the predatory glint in her gaze, and allowed himself a small, grim smile. They were the tip of the spear, the first strike in what would be a long and bloody war. But for now, at this moment, all that mattered was the mission. All that mattered was vengeance, cold and pure and righteous. The music swelled, the crowd parted, and Director Zavroth strode into the room, his black eyes glittering with cruel amusement. Wright's finger tightened on the trigger of his pulse rifle as he whispered into the comms. "Target acquired. Let's send these bastards a message they won't soon forget." "Forget?" Wright's words hung in the air for a heartbeat before chaos erupted. Volkov and Hawkins unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, their weapons cutting through the stunned council security forces like a scythe through wheat. Alien screams filled the grand hall as the super soldiers carved a path of destruction towards their target. Director Zavroth's eyes widened in shock, his self-assured smirk vanishing as he realized the danger. He turned to flee, but Wright was already in motion, his enhanced muscles propelling him across the room with inhuman speed. The two collided in a tangle of limbs, Wright's stolen robes tearing away to reveal his combat armor. They crashed through an ornate table, sending crystal glasses shattering across the polished floor. "Sato, status on those security systems?" Wright grunted as he grappled with the alien leader. "Working on it, Cap," Sato's voice crackled through the comm. "But these defenses are like nothing I've ever seen. The AI is adapting faster than I can hack it." A piercing alarm split the air, and energy fields sprang to life around the room's exits. Automated defense turrets emerged from hidden panels in the ceiling, their barrels tracking the movement of the super soldiers. "Hawkins, Volkov, take those turrets out," Wright ordered, narrowly dodging a vicious swipe from Zavroth's clawed hand. The two soldiers moved in perfect sync, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to dance between streams of energy fire. Hawkins's massive frame absorbed hits that would have vaporized an ordinary human, his armor smoking as he returned fire with his heavy repeater. Volkov vaulted over an overturned table, her lithe form a blur as she closed the distance to the nearest turret. With a graceful leap, she latched onto the ceiling-mounted weapon, ripping it free with augmented strength and hurling it at another turret. "Kadiri, we could use some Overwatch," Wright called out as he traded blows with Zavroth. The alien leader was stronger than he looked, bio-augmentations of his own evident in the fight. "Negative, sir," Kadiri's calm voice replied. "Some kind of energy field is blocking my shots. You're on your own in there." Wright gritted his teeth, focusing on the battle at hand. He and Zavroth were evenly matched, each blow countered, each grapple broken. The alien's black eyes glittered with hatred as they fought. "You primitive apes," Zavroth hissed. "Did you really think you could challenge the might of the council?" "We're full of surprises," Wright shot back, landing a punishing blow to the alien's midsection. Zavroth stumbled back, wheezing. He raised a hand, activating a hidden comm device. "Admiral Karag, we are under attack. Activate Protocol Omega." A deep, rumbling voice answered. "Understood, Director. Hold position. I'm on my way." Before Wright could press his advantage, the floor beneath them shuddered. A massive explosion rocked the building, sending tremors through the structure. "Kadiri, report," Wright barked. "Had to improvise, sir," the sniper replied. "Detonated the charges in the research lab. Should buy us some time." The blast had the desired effect. The energy fields flickered and died, and the remaining turrets sparked and went offline. Sato's voice came through, tinged with relief. I'm in. Security systems are down. Wright allowed himself a grim smile. He turned back to Zavroth, who was struggling to his feet. Time to send that message, he growled. With lightning speed, Wright closed the distance. His hands shot out, gripping the alien's head. There was a sickening crack as he twisted, and Zavroth's body went limp. Target eliminated, Wright reported. Let's move out. But as the team regrouped, a new threat emerged. The grand doors at the far end of the hall burst open, revealing a towering figure in gleaming battle armor. Admiral Karag had arrived, and the true test of the super soldier's abilities was about to begin. Admiral Karag's massive form filled the doorway, his battle armor gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. The super soldiers tensed, weapons raised, as the towering alien strode into the room. Impressive, Karag rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. You've managed to kill that simpering fool Zavroth, but your little rebellion ends here. Wright's mind raced, calculating odds and escape routes. Sato? Options? Working on it, Cap, the tech specialist muttered, fingers flying over his wrist display. There's an emergency evacuation chute 3 meters to your left. It'll dump us into the sewers, but... A piercing shriek cut through the air as Karag activated some kind of sonic weapon. The super soldiers stumbled, their enhanced senses overwhelmed by the assault. Move! Wright roared, fighting through the disorientation. He fired a burst from his pulse rifle, the energy bolt splashing harmlessly against Karag's shields. The team staggered towards the evacuation chute, Volkov and Hawkins providing covering fire. Wright smacked his fist into the emergency release, and the floor dropped out from beneath them. They plummeted through darkness, the stench of the sewers growing stronger. With a bone-jarring impact, they splashed down into fetid water. Everyone alive? Wright asked, hauling himself to his feet. A chorus of affirmatives answered him as the team regrouped. Qadiri's voice crackled over the comms. Sir, we've got incoming. Looks like Karag's sending drones after us. Double time it, people, Wright ordered. We need to put some distance between us and that monster. They slogged through the muck, the distant whine of pursuit drones growing louder. Sato worked furiously on his wrist computer, trying to map a route to the surface. This way, he called, gesturing down a branching tunnel. There's an access hatch about 200 meters ahead that should lead us to the outskirts of the city. As they neared the hatch, the first of the drones rounded the corner behind them. Hawkins turned, his heavy repeater spitting death, shredding the machines into scrap metal. Go, go, Wright shouted as Volkov wrenched the hatch open. One by one, they clambered up the access ladder, emerging into the smoky twilight of the Ithorian slums. In the distance, they could see the council headquarters ablaze, secondary explosions rocking the structure. Qadiri's improvised demolitions had done their job well. We need to get off-world, Wright said, scanning the horizon. Sato, any luck finding us a ride? The tech specialist nodded, pointing towards a nearby spaceport. There's a freighter scheduled for departure in 20 minutes. If we hurry, we can... A massive explosion lit up the sky as the council headquarters finally collapsed in on itself. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, and a cloud of debris billowed outwards. Time to go, Wright growled, helping Volkov to her feet. Move out, double time! They sprinted through the war-torn streets, dodging panicked civilians and the occasional council patrol. As they neared the spaceport, Wright caught sight of their salvation, a battered freighter warming up its engines. There, he shouted, gesturing towards the ship. Hawkins, Qadiri, secure that vessel. The rest of you, with me, will create a diversion. The team split up, Wright leading his group in a flanking maneuver to draw off the spaceport security. Pulse rifles cracked, and energy bolts sizzled through the air as they engaged the guards. We're in, Hawkins's voice came over the comms. But this bucket of bolts isn't going to hold off a determined assault for long. Understood, Wright replied, ducking behind a cargo container as return fire peppered his position. Fall back to the ship. We're right behind you. The super soldiers disengaged, sprinting for the freighter's lowered ramp. Wright brought up the rear, laying down suppressing fire as his team boarded. Go, 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 he shouted as he dove through the hatch. The ramp slammed shut behind him, and he felt the deck lurch as the ship lifted off. Qadiri's voice came over the ship's intercom. "Strap in, it's going to get bumpy. We've got council fighters inbound." Wright made his way to the cockpit, where Sato was furiously working the ship's systems. "What's our status?" "Not good," Sato replied, his eyes never leaving the console. "This freighter's hyperdrive is offline, and our shields won't hold up against sustained fire from those fighters." Outside the viewport, Wright could see the sleek shapes of council interceptors closing in. "Options?" Sato's fingers danced across the controls. "I've managed to mask our engine signature. If we can make it to the system's asteroid belt, we might be able to lose them long enough for me to get the hyperdrive back online." "Do it," Wright ordered, strapping himself into the co-pilot seat. "Hawkins, Volkov, man the turrets. We're going to need every advantage we can get." The freighter shuddered as it accelerated, pushing deeper into the system. Behind them, the council fighters opened fire, energy beams lancing through space. "Entering the asteroid field now," Sato announced, his voice tight with concentration. "Hang on!" The ship dove and weaved through the tumbling rocks, alarms blaring as they narrowly avoided collisions. In the distance, Wright could see flashes of light as their pursuers met less fortunate ends. "How much longer on that hyperdrive?" he asked, watching the sensors for any signs of pursuit. "Almost there," Sato muttered. "Just need to reroute power from the—" A massive impact rocked the ship, sending sparks cascading from overloaded systems. Wright's head snapped forward, and he tasted blood. "Report!" he barked, fighting to clear his vision. "Bad news, Cap," Hawkins called from the gunner's station. "Looks like our old friend Karag managed to follow us. He's in some kind of advanced pursuit craft, and he's not playing nice." Wright's teeth gritted as he saw the readings on the sensor display. Karag's ship was gaining on them, its weapons already charging for another salvo. "Sato." I know." The tech specialist's hands flew across the controls. "Just a few more seconds." The freighter shuddered again as Karag's weapons found their mark. Warning lights flashed across the console, indicating multiple system failures. "Now or never, Sato," Wright shouted as he saw Karag's ship lining up for a killing blow. "Got it," Sato yelled triumphantly. He slammed his hand down on the hyperdrive activator, and the stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of brilliant light. They had escaped for now, but as the adrenaline of the moment faded, Wright knew their troubles were far from finished. He turned to Sato, his expression grim. "Get us somewhere safe," he ordered. "We need to regroup and figure out our next move." As the ship hurtled through hyperspace, Wright couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. Whatever came next, he knew his team would face it head on. The stolen freighter shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, its battered hull creaking under the strain. Captain Wright unstrapped himself from the co-pilot seat, his muscles aching from the tension of their narrow escape. "Status report," he barked, scanning the unfamiliar star system spread out before them. Sato's fingers danced across the nav console. "We've emerged in the Zeta Reticuli system, sir. It's sparsely populated, mostly mining outposts. Should give us some breathing room to effect repairs." Wright nodded, his mind already racing ahead to their next move. "Get us docked at one of those outposts. We need to resupply and gather intel." As the freighter limped towards a nondescript asteroid base, Wright gathered his team in the ship's cramped mess hall. The super soldiers looked worse for wear, their armor scorched and dented from the firefight on Myrovia. "We've struck a blow against the Council," Wright began, "but we can't afford to rest on our laurels. Sato, what have you gleaned from the transmissions we intercepted?" The tech specialist's face was grim as he called up a holographic display. "It's not good, Cap. The Council's doubling down on their oppression. Multiple worlds are facing crackdowns, and there's one name that keeps coming up, Admiral Karag." The holodisplay shifted, showing the towering alien in his battle armor. Hawkins spat on the deck. "That walking tank who nearly flattened us back there? What's his game?" "Pacification campaign," Sato replied, his voice tight. "He's subjugating entire populations through brute force, and his next target—" The display changed again, showing a verdant world. "Theron IV." Volkov leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "That's a human colony world, isn't it? One of the refugee settlements from First Contact? Wright nodded, his teeth clenched. Governor Jacob Carver. I've heard of him. Outspoken dissident, been a thorn in the council's side for years. Sir, Kadiri spoke up, his normally calm voice tinged with urgency. If Karag hits Theron 4, it'll be a slaughter. Those colonists don't stand a chance. The cabin fell silent as the weight of the situation sank in. Wright stood, his decision made. Prep for immediate departure. We're changing course for Theron 4. Hawkins raised an eyebrow. What about our mission, Cap? The shadow war against the Council? Sometimes you have to lose a battle to win a war, Wright replied, his voice steel. We can't let those colonists be massacred. We evacuate as many as we can before Karag's forces arrive. As the team dispersed to their stations, Wright felt a presence at his side. It was Zyla, the resistance fighter they'd picked up on Maruvia. Her alien features were set in a look of unwavering determination. My cell has a safe house not far from Theron 4, she said. We can rendezvous there, gather more ships for the evacuation. Wright nodded, grateful for the unexpected ally. Good. We'll need all the help we can get. The freighter's engines flared to life, propelling them towards their next desperate mission. As they accelerated to light speed, Wright stared out at the star-streaked void, knowing that the real test of their enhanced abilities was just beginning. On Theron 4, the colony's capital city of Karthus bustled with activity, blissfully unaware of the impending doom bearing down upon it. Governor Carver stood in his office, gazing out at the skyline he'd helped build. A chime from his desk interrupted his reverie. Governor? His aide's voice crackled through the comm. We're detecting multiple unscheduled ship entries in the system. They're not responding to hails. Carver's blood ran cold. He'd known this day might come, but he'd hoped for more time. Sound the alarm, he ordered, and get me a direct line to planetary defense. We're about to have company. Company, we need to evacuate now. The words had barely left Carver's mouth when the first explosions rocked the city. Wright and his team, having just touched down on the outskirts, witnessed the chaos unfold. Karag's moving faster than we anticipated, Wright growled, his enhanced vision picking out the silhouettes of Council dropships descending through the atmosphere. Spread out and get as many civilians to the spaceport as possible. We'll hold off Karag's forces as long as we can. The super soldiers sprang into action, their augmented bodies allowing them to cover ground at inhuman speeds. Volkov and Kadiri sprinted towards the residential sectors, while Hawkins set up a makeshift defensive position near the spaceport's main entrance. Wright made a beeline for the governor's mansion, dodging panicked crowds and falling debris. He burst through the doors to find Carver coordinating the evacuation efforts. Governor Carver, Wright called out, I'm Captain Wright. We're here to get you and your people to safety. Carver's eyes widened in recognition. The rogue Olympians? I thought you were just a rumor. We're real enough, Wright replied, grabbing the governor's arm. And right now, we're your best chance of survival. As they rushed towards the spaceport, the sky darkened with the arrival of Karag's flagship. The massive vessel cast an ominous shadow over the city, its weapon systems priming for a full-scale assault. Zyla's voice crackled over the comms. Right, we've got incoming. Karag's deploying some kind of new combat units. They're not like anything I've seen before. Wright's blood ran cold as he saw the first wave of Karag's forces touch down. Cybernetically enhanced soldiers, more machine than flesh, moved with terrifying efficiency as they cut through the colony's meager defenses. Everyone, fall back to the evac point, Wright ordered, firing his pulse rifle to cover a group of fleeing civilians. We can't hold them off for long. The next hours passed in a blur of desperate combat and frantic evacuation efforts. Wright and his team pushed themselves to the limit, their enhanced bodies and tactical training allowing them to hold off Karag's forces just long enough for the bulk of the colonists to escape. As the last transport prepared for liftoff, Wright found himself face-to-face with Admiral Karag himself. The towering alien's battle armor gleamed in the light of the burning city. You've become quite the irritant, Captain, Karag rumbled, his cybernetic eye glowing with malevolence. But your interference ends here. Wright raised his rifle. knowing he was outmatched but determined to buy time for the final evacuees. "You're right about one thing, Karag. This ends here." The two warriors clashed in a furious melee, Wright's enhanced reflexes barely keeping pace with Karag's augmented strength. As they fought, Wright caught glimpses of the devastation around them, the colony in flames, Karag's monstrous troops advancing relentlessly. A massive explosion rocked the spaceport as the last transport lifted off. Wright used the distraction to break away from Karag, sprinting towards his team's waiting ship. "Go, go, go!" he shouted as he dove through the closing hatch. The engines roared to life and they shot into the atmosphere, narrowly avoiding the barrage of fire from Karag's forces. As they broke orbit, Wright looked back at the burning world below. The victory, if it could be called that, felt hollow. They'd saved many, but countless more had been lost. Sato's voice broke through his dark thoughts. "Captain, I'm picking up some encrypted council transmissions. There's something you need to see." Wright made his way to the bridge, his body aching from the brutal fight. The holo display flickered to life, revealing a star chart and a series of coded messages. "What am I looking at, Sato?" The tech specialist's face was grim. "It's a project called Tartarus. Whatever it is, it's big enough to have Karag's full attention. And if these coordinates are right, it's happening on Zarek Prime." Wright's mind raced, connecting the dots. A volcanic hellscape, perfect for hiding something the Council doesn't want found. "Plot a course, Sato. It's time we took the fight to them." As the battered ship limped into hyperspace, Wright knew they were jumping from one fire into an even bigger inferno. But the alternative, letting the Council's plans come to fruition, was unthinkable. Whatever horrors awaited them on Zarek Prime, they would face them head-on. The hyperdrive whined as Wright's team dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their battered freighter shuddering from the strain. Ahead lay an uncharted system, a lone star surrounded by barren, rocky worlds. Picking up a faint signal, Sato called out, his fingers dancing across the console. "It's weak, but definitely artificial." Wright leaned forward, studying the readouts. "Origin?" "Third planet. Looks like it's coming from a ship in low orbit." As they approached, the vessel came into view, a derelict research craft drifting listlessly. Its hull was scarred and pitted, life support systems flickering weakly. "No response to hails," Volkov reported grimly. "I've got a bad feeling about this, Cap." Wright nodded, his expression resolute. "Suit up. We're going in." The team donned their sealed combat gear and boarded the derelict via a docking umbilical. The airlock cycled with a hiss, revealing a nightmare. Blood-smeared corridors stretched before them, littered with twisted bodies. Some wore tattered lab coats, others appeared to be security personnel. All bore hideous mutations, misshapen limbs, grotesque growths, features warped beyond recognition. "What in hell happened here?" Hawkins whispered, his rifle sweeping the shadows. "Sato, get to the bridge. See what you can pull from their systems," Wright ordered. "The rest of you, fan out. Look for survivors." They moved cautiously through the ship, piecing together the grim story. This had been a rogue research vessel, stolen by scientists who'd fled the Galactic Council. In their zeal to study and neutralize the Armageddon virus, they'd made a catastrophic error. A noise from a nearby lab made them freeze. Wright signaled silently, and they stacked up by the door. On his mark, they burst in and found themselves face to face with a terrified alien. "Don't shoot," she cried, raising trembling hands. "I'm Arvik. I'm the only one left." The Calixian scientist was clearly traumatized, her alien features haggard with exhaustion and fear. But her eyes sparked with desperate hope as she realized they weren't infected. "The virus," she babbled, "it mutated, became airborne. The others, they changed, became monsters. You have to help me destroy this ship before—" A bone-chilling shriek cut her off. From the shadows of the lab, a nightmarish figure lunged, all twisted limbs and gnashing teeth. Wright's enhanced reflexes kicked in, his rifle snapping up and firing in one fluid motion. The abomination fell, twitching. "They're still here," Arvik whispered, "still hunting." Sato's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, you need to see this. I've accessed their research logs. It's worse than we thought. As Wright absorbed the full scope of the catastrophe, alarms began to blare. A familiar voice boomed through the ship's speakers, sending a chill down their spines. "Did you think you could hide from me, Captain?" Admiral Karag's growl filled the air. "Your meddling ends today." Through the viewports, they saw Karag's massive warship looming. Scourge dropships were already en route, carrying the cyborg shock troops that had nearly overwhelmed them on Theron 4. Wright's mind raced. They were trapped between mutant horrors, Karag's forces, and a virus that could end all life in the galaxy. Their next move would determine not just their fate, but potentially that of every inhabited world. He turned to his team, their faces grim behind their visors. "Looks like we've got a fight on our hands." Wright's mind raced, assessing their dire situation. The derelict ship groaned around them, teeming with mutated horrors. Outside, Karag's forces closed in. The captain's gaze fell on the Scourge dropships, and a desperate plan crystallized. "Sato," he barked, "can you access the ship's self-destruct protocols?" The tech specialist nodded grimly. "Already on it, Cap." Wright turned to Arvik. "You mentioned destroying this ship. We're going to do just that, but first, we need to capture one of those Scourge troopers." Hawkins raised an eyebrow. "Sir?" "If we can't beat them, we'll join them," Wright explained. "Temporarily, at least." The team moved with practiced efficiency, setting charges at key structural points. As Karag's forces breached the hull, Wright and Volkov sprang their trap. A carefully timed explosion separated a Scourge cyborg from its squad. Before it could react, Kadiri's enhanced strength pinned it down. Arvik's eyes widened as she grasped Wright's plan. A neural shutdown? Yes, it could work, but the integration process— "I'll do it," Sato interrupted, his face set with persistence. Wright clasped his shoulder. "You sure about this?" Sato nodded. "Someone has to." They retreated to a makeshift lab, the sounds of battle echoing through the corridors. Sato gritted his teeth as Arvik connected a series of neural interfaces between his enhanced brain and the struggling Scourge cyborg. The moment Sato initiated the link, his body convulsed. His eyes rolled back, mouth contorting in a silent scream. The team watched helplessly as their comrade battled an unseen enemy. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Finally, Sato gasped, his eyes snapping open. "Got it," he panted. "Link severed." As Wright helped Sato to his feet, the tech specialist's face drained of color. "Captain, it's worse than we thought. Kolthar, he's building something called the Armageddon Blight. If he succeeds—" A violent tremor cut him off. Karag's forces were closing in. "We'll debrief later," Wright ordered. "Everyone to the Scourge dropship. Now!" They fought their way through waves of mutants and cyborg soldiers, the captured Scourge trooper providing a moment's hesitation among enemy forces. As they reached the dropship, Wright activated the derelict's self-destruct sequence. The explosion rocked space as they escaped, temporarily masking their presence among the Scourge fleet. Wright piloted the dropship away from the battle, knees going weak from Sato's revelation. "Where to, Cap?" Hawkins asked. Wright's eyes sharp. "Sato, access the Scourge navigation systems. We need to find the Gorkana's homeworld." "The Gorkanas?" Volkov exclaimed. "They'll kill us on sight." "Maybe," Wright admitted, "but if anyone knows how to stop Kolthar, it's them." As they charted a course into hostile territory, Wright knew they were jumping from the frying pan into the fire. But with the destiny of the universe hanging in the balance, they had no choice but to take the risk. The dropship accelerated, leaving behind the chaos of Karag's forces. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and their only hope of stopping the Armageddon Blight. The dropship's engines whined as Wright guided it through the treacherous approach to Gorkana's space. Tension crackled through the cabin as they neared the homeworld of their unlikely allies. "Incoming transmission," Sato announced, his fingers dancing across the control panel. A gravelly voice filled the cockpit. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. State your purpose or be destroyed." Wright leaned forward. "This is Captain Samuel Wright of the Human Alliance. We seek an audience with King Taurok. The future of the stars hangs in the balance. Seconds stretched into an eternity before the reply came. Proceed to these coordinates. Any deviation will result in immediate termination. As they approached the imposing Gorkana's capital ship, Wright briefed his team on their risky move. The information Sato had gleaned from the Scourge network painted a grim picture. Kolthar's Armageddon Blight was nearing completion on the forge world of Cedra Tertius. Their stolen dropship docked with a metallic clang. As the airlock cycled open, they found themselves surrounded by towering Gorkana's warriors, their chitinous armor gleaming under harsh lights. King Taurok himself strode forward, his massive frame dwarfing even his own guards. "So, the humans come crawling to us for help," he rumbled, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. "Speak quickly, Wright. Why should I not crush you where you stand?" Wright met the alien monarch's gaze unflinchingly. "Because Kolthar is about to unleash a weapon that will destroy us all, Gorkanas included." As Wright laid out the situation, Taurok's compound eyes narrowed. The king's tentacles writhed in agitation as he absorbed the full scope of the threat. "You propose an alliance?" Taurok asked, his voice a low growl. Wright nodded. "A joint strike on Cedra Tertius. Your fleet provides the distraction while my team infiltrates and sabotages the Blight production facilities." The Gorkana's war council erupted in a cacophony of clicks and hisses. Taurok silenced them with a thunderous roar. "You ask much, human," the king rumbled, "but the alternative is annihilation." He turned to his generals. "Prepare the armada. We go to war." The next hours passed in a flurry of activity. As the Gorkana's fleet mobilized, Wright's team pored over intelligence reports and schematics. Arvik worked feverishly to develop countermeasures against the Blight. Finally, they emerged from hyperspace above Cedra Tertius. The Forge world loomed before them, its surface a nightmarish landscape of vast industrial complexes and viral synthesis vats. "All units commence operation," Wright ordered as he led his team to the waiting stealth shuttles. The void erupted in plasma fire as Taurok's war fleets engaged the Scourge's orbital defenses. Under the cover of this apocalyptic battle, Wright's shuttles slipped through, racing towards the primary biohazard complex. They hit the ground running, Scourge sentries already converging on their position. Volkov's heavy weapons cleared a path as they fought their way deeper into the facility. "Hawkins, Kadiri, take your teams and begin sabotage operations," Wright commanded. "Sato, Arvik, you're with me. We're heading for the control hub." The complex became a war zone as alarms blared. Wright's enhanced reflexes were pushed to the limit as they battled through waves of cyborg soldiers. Sato's hacked Scourge implants gave them a temporary edge, allowing them to bypass security checkpoints. They reached the central hub, only to find it locked down. As Sato worked to override the systems, a familiar, chilling voice filled the chamber. "I've been expecting you, Captain Wright." Kolthar's augmented form emerged from the shadows, his eyes glowing with malevolent energy. "Your meddling ends here." Wright raised his pulse rifle. "That's where you're wrong, Kolthar. This is where we stop you, once and for all." The two adversaries clashed in a brutal melee, the future of the cosmos hanging in the balance as the battle for Cedra Tertius raged around them. The clash between Wright and Kolthar sent shockwaves through the control hub. Sparks flew as the captain's enhanced reflexes met the Ravager's augmented strength. Sato and Arvik worked feverishly at nearby terminals, their fingers flying across alien interfaces. A deafening explosion rocked the facility. Wright stumbled, giving Kolthar an opening. The cyborg's fist connected with bone-crushing force, sending Wright sprawling. "Your resistance is futile," Kolthar sneered, advancing on the downed captain. Wright spat blood, his hand closing around a jagged piece of debris. As Kolthar loomed over him, Wright drove the makeshift weapon into a gap in the cyborg's armor. Kolthar roared in pain and fury. The moment's distraction was all they needed. Sato's voice cut through the chaos. "Captain, it's done!" Wright rolled away from Kolthar's grasp, sprinting for the exit. "Detonate!" he shouted. The world erupted in fire and twisted metal as they fled the disintegrating complex. Hawkins and Kadiri's teams converged on their position, laying down suppressing fire against waves of Scourge soldiers. They fought their way to the waiting shuttles, the sky above them ablaze with the battle between Taurak's fleet and Karag's forces. As they lifted off, Wright watched Sidra Tertius recede, its surface scarred by their desperate assault. The victory was short-lived. As they approached the Gorkana's fleet, a transmission crackled through. "Human vessel, this is Commander Zirak. King Taurak has fallen. Karag's ambush decimated our forces." Wright's heart sank. He turned to his battered team, seeing the weight of their losses etched on their faces. "We've dealt Kolthar a blow," he said, "but this fight is far from finished." Zirak's voice returned, tinged with urgency. "Captain Wright, Taurak's final orders were to assist you. He spoke of a hidden Scourge stronghold, a world called Endgame." As Wright absorbed this information, alarms blared. Karag's fleet was closing in, having routed the remains of Taurak's armada. "Everyone strap in," Wright ordered, taking the shuttle's controls. "We're making a run for that Gorkana's warship." They dodged plasma fire and debris, the shuttle's hull groaning under the strain. With a bone-jarring impact, they crash-landed in the warship's hangar. As Karag's forces closed in, Wright barked orders to the Gorkana's crew. The ancient warship lurched into motion, its engines straining as it tore free from the battle. Wright watched the tactical display, seeing Karag's ships in pursuit. They needed a plan, and fast. He turned to Sato and Arvik. "You heard Zirak. We need to find this endgame. If it's Kolthar's command nexus, taking it out could cripple the entire Scourge operation." As the battered warship pushed deeper into space, Wright gathered his team. They had suffered losses, but the fire of persistence still burned in their eyes. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but they had struck a blow against Kolthar. Now they had to finish what they started. Sato's fingers danced across the ship's navigational systems, beginning the intricate process of tracking Endgame's trajectory. Arvik worked beside him, her alien physiology allowing her to interface directly with the ship's computers. "Captain," Volkov called out, her voice tense, "we've got multiple Scourge signatures on an intercept course." Wright's mind raced, weighing their options. They couldn't fight, not in this state. Their only hope was to find Endgame before Karag's forces caught up with them. "Sato, how long?" Wright demanded. The specialist's face was lined with concentration. "Almost there, sir. Just need to—" A violent shudder ran through the ship. Proximity alarms screamed as the first wave of Scourge fighters closed in. "Volkov, evasive maneuvers," Wright ordered. "Hawkins, Kadiri, get to the gun batteries. Buy us some time." The ancient Gorkana's warship groaned as Volkov pushed it to its limits, corkscrewing through space to avoid enemy fire. Hawkins and Kadiri's voices crackled over the comm as they returned fire, holding the Scourge at bay. "Got it," Sato exclaimed. "Coordinates locked in." Wright didn't hesitate. "Punch it!" The ship's warp drive engaged with a sound like reality itself tearing. Stars blurred into streaks of light as they hurtled towards their destination, in their final confrontation with Kolthar.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.